Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monday Night Mayhem. I am your host, Marty Mayhem. Fallout 4 is a game that only had to be announced in order for it to be the most anticipated game of the year. I remember back in the E3 conference with Bethesda, and Todd Howard seemed modest more than anything. Imagine a publisher just needing to send some mellow, curly-headed hipster out there, and they have the audience eating from their hands. It tells me that Bethesda really didn't do too much out of the ordinary to hype their game. Sure, they had the commercials and the pre-order bonuses and the season pass, but so what? Everybody has those. If anyone, it's the consumer's fault that they were as hyped as they were following Fallout 4's launch. It usually is, really, but nonetheless, here we have Fallout 4, the game that disappointed a lot of people. Now, I understand if you're not one of them, but the game was still heavily criticized when it came out. Forget about the hype, the marketing, and the idea most people had going into it, that they would play it like it's acid for months, and it would be the greatest game to ever be conceived by Jesus himself, also known as Todd Howard. Today, I'm looking at Fallout 4 for what it is. You know how it works. It's set in a few hundred years after humanity done goofed and decided it would be funny if it put all its excess nuclear shit to good use and blew itself up. Genius! So once you're done with the first few minutes, which include having to hear the same damn contrived and obvious line over and over again, I'm not even kidding, look at this shit!
War. War never changes. War. War never changes. War never changes. War never changes. Got that right.
We get it! Our technological advancements don't change the core nature of violence. Why do you have to tell me that repeatedly? This isn't the only thing in Fallout 4 that's repetitive, but stick around for that later. You are given a character with his or her own voice, unlike in previous games where the player is mute.
War never changes.
Shut up! This is one of the things I heard plenty of unhappy customers going on about beforehand, and the whole idea struck me as harmless. If I can't relate to a character because they don't have a voice and a backstory, and therefore can't latch onto him as a reflection of myself, then it really isn't much of a character to begin with. Maybe that was the problem, not being the lone wanderer we used to in Bethesda RPGs. That's when I started playing the game, and holy smokes, I was right! As usual. So the protagonist having the ability of speech doesn't bother me, but what about the dialogue system in general? I can tell you that it's frustrating as all hell. In Skyrim, the dialogue choices tell you pretty much precisely what the character is going to say. In this, it's too vague. I find myself saying something I don't really want to because of how little I'm given to go by. To be fair, it's only a problem sometimes, not every time. But still, it's damn annoying when it does happen. Luckily, you can just sprinkle some mods on it and all the pain will go away. As if. Once the prologue is finally over, and you're given the freedom to pillage and plunder as you see fit, you'll still probably do whatever random strangers order you to do, you fucking tool. So the first Samaritan you come across expects you to hear their life story, give them a massage, and maybe resist the urge to strangle them in their sleep, is your robot butler Codsworth. As in, Cod is worth absolutely fuck all. Codsworth's first order of business is to head to some small town named Concord, as in Concord E3, and, I don't know, maybe fight one of the most dangerous enemies in the game while you're still wearing spandex? Do I sound like a guy who doesn't like being told what to do? Because I swear that's only 99% exactly what I am. Forget the Deathclaw. That is mostly mowed down in a solid minute, killing the threat that's supposed to have for the rest of the game. The real force of evil would have to be the utter torture of being in the presence of the most annoying, most idiotic, most worthless pile of spam Fallout 4 could have possibly thrown at me. I am speaking, of course, of dog meat. Right off the bat, I was scared that this mutt would be a burden, and no later than 5 minutes afterwards, I had my answer. Words truly cannot express my hatred of Kylo Ren's furry bastard child, but come on! There's no defending this hell spawn. He's constantly getting in the way. It takes somewhere between a New York minute and a fortnight for him to actually kill somebody, and his AI is just a load of ass. I can forgive terrible AI from the other companions, because they each have at least a hint of charisma to them, but not from a canine. But much like half the quests in this game, making fun of dog meat is only fun for so long, then it just gets tedious. I'll tell you what though, there's plenty of other followers to take his place. Sooner rather than later. While playing a Bethesda RPG, I find the expansive and detailed worlds inevitably seem small when traveling alone, and doing so subjects yourself to a better chance of getting killed. And like in most games, dying in Fallout 4 only serves for the express purpose of pissing me off. So let's take a second to appreciate the companions, of which Fallout 4 has the strongest lineup in Bethesda's history. Preston Marlowe's constant nagging about clearing settlements would probably be more annoying if Dogmeat didn't exist as a comparison. And I assure you, Preston's got nothing on that thing. Preston's a bit too much of a do-gooder, unfortunately, and having him follow me around just isn't as fun as the others. There's Kate, the Irish brawler. I picked her up by murdering 24 people like they were a bunch of posers, the sight of which Kate gleefully watched in awe. So you can understand my enthusiasm of her character. She's primarily self-centered, but once you've been with companions for long enough, keeping them happy, they'll eventually open up, which is when Kate really shines the most. That's why she's probably my favorite companion to have around, or at least my second. Don't have her around when doing anything nice for someone though, because all bets are off then. My definite favorite, however, would be Nick Valentine. He's a private investigator in Fallout's biggest city, Diamond City. It's the biggest settlement because it's pretty much the only lousy settlement, other than a couple really small ones. What makes Nick so great is that he's a freaking boss. He is a detective after all, and approaches situations the way one would. He's also a caring sort. Not the kind of caring like with Preston, who is like a walking cancer charity fund and I'm the goddamn cure. Nick wants to make a difference, and knows how to do that with more charisma than The Rock. Well, maybe not that much. He's cool, he's tough, and he can kick a little raider ass. Speaking of ass, let's get back to the modding scene for this game. It's cancerous, juvenile, and full of dipshits who don't know what porn is. Otherwise, they'd be making better use of their time. So that's enough of that AIDS. Back to the gameplay. Specifically the gunplay, which is where Fallout 4 really shines, while its actual RPG elements don't. The gun customization alone is what takes up a bunch of my time. You can use specific parts found across the Commonwealth. Yes, that's what they call it, the Commonwealth, like it's anything close to being pleasant to live in. The crafting system the guns use is what really makes your loadout unique. Not just that, but the actual combat in the game is what I truly love about it. One of the primary things that makes the FPS part of an FPS shine is just how fun it is to shoot your enemies. You with me so far? Shooting is an important part in shooters. You better write this down so you don't forget. While much of the game is not what I call fun, killing bad guys surely is. The guns feel like guns, and it's always refreshing every time I put a Mirelurk or a Raider or some other poser in their place. I can't gush about the satisfaction shooting in this game brings too much, but just going on that alone, Fallout 4 is worthy of a recommendation. And then there's the monotonous and sometimes mundane repetition in this bloated behemoth of a shooter. Each mission feels, and essentially is, the same thing over and over again. Every mission Preston Thunderhat sends you on, doing the bidding of whatever hole in the wall that needs a servant, feels the same. They've got a problem, agree to join the Minutemen if you shoot the problem dead. Once you find that problem, you clear the building of it and clock out, and you're fucked if the game just decided to have more criminals in one room than Detroit, and you're only level 10. It's almost like Bethesda couldn't create real environments and people in their world, so they expect the player to do it for them. Which is fine, if it's still fun after doing it 20 times. I'd rather they put settlements and actual factions that don't expect me to wipe their asses in the game that I can actually discover with glee, not build like I'm the game's little slave. There's a daily grind aspect in this game that just kinda puts me off, or at least temporarily, until I get right back to it and forget that this entire game feels like work. Still, at least Piper's got a sweet ass. Truth is, I'm only using the Minutemen missions as an example. There's a constrained variety of missions Fallout 4 throws at me. Sure, you get to go to different places, kill different enemies, and find new guns and more upgrades along the way, but there's a specific formula Bethesda's RPGs stick to when it comes to their quests. It's the kind of formula that is big in scale, giving you the impression that everything is varied and that there's a whole world out there for you to explore. But at the end of the day, they can keep making their games and keep adding new things to them and showing us new places. But in the end, Fallout 4 is still very small. When you build something as big as this, your focus tends to spread too thin, to the point where there is no focus. So Fallout 4 isn't a bad game. As far as games go, I'd say it's a pretty good one. But as a true adventure, one of depth and character, there are better places out there to see. Get it at a discount, rent it, whatever the hell you want to do. But without all the hype, the propaganda, and the anticipation in our hearts, the only thing all games will be expected to have in them is a road worth driving on. With the top down, wind in my hair, and the hype train far behind me, Fallout 4 still disappointed me.